In this video, I'd like to visit with you for a few minutes about the apostrophe. The apostrophe is a small piece of punctuation, but it can cause quite a bit of confusion. For instance, do we put the apostrophe before the S or do we put the apostrophe after the S? And when do we put it there? It is a very important piece of punctuation because it can completely change the meaning of your sentence. I'm not sure it's so important that I would walk up to someone wearing a Hell's Angels jacket and ask them if they need an apostrophe, but it is an important piece of punctuation. So let's spend just a few minutes looking at three major ways to use the apostrophe. The first way that we use the apostrophe is to show possession. This is a little tricky. Sometimes people just see an S and they think, I need an apostrophe with that. But the first question we have to ask ourselves is, does somebody own something in this sentence? Is there some possession taking place? For instance, the school's projector was broken. So I see the S on the end of schools. My first question is, do I need an apostrophe with that? All right, well, let's look at the word right behind it, projector. Does the school own the projector? If the answer is yes, I need an apostrophe. If the answer is no, no apostrophe needed. Okay, so we say the school's projector was broken. Does the school own the projector? Yes, I need an apostrophe with school. She treasures her mother's necklace. Does the necklace belong to the mother? If the answer is yes, I need an apostrophe. And in the same way, we care about our children's education. Do the children own their education? Yes, it belongs to them. And so that's showing possession, and we need an apostrophe with that S. Now, here's where we get into whether the apostrophe goes before the S or after the S. I have to ask myself, first of all, does this show possession? Is somebody owning it? And then the second question is one person owning it, or are multiple people owning this? Okay, if only one person is owning it, the apostrophe goes before the S. As in these instances, Doris's purse. There's one Doris, she owns a purse. So the apostrophe goes before the S. Even if her name ends in S, that doesn't matter. If there's one Doris, it's apostrophe S. James's bat. Did you find James's bat? One James, apostrophe S. I like Chris's smile. One Chris, he owns his smile, so an apostrophe before the S. If the word is plural and it ends in S, then I'm going to add the apostrophe after the S. For instance, we collected the boys' statements. Okay, so in this particular case, there's more than one boy. They own their statements, so the apostrophe goes after the S. You can see very quickly, the boys own the statements. There's more than one boy because the apostrophe goes after the S. How about, did we collect the workers' contracts? Okay, the contracts belong to the workers. There's more than one worker, so the apostrophe goes after the S. You can totally change the meaning of a sentence just by where you place that apostrophe. For the instance with boys and boys, if I say, we collected the boys' statement, but I put the apostrophe before the S, okay, then there's just one boy making a statement. But if I say we collected the boys' statements with the apostrophe after the S, then I'm telling you there are multiple boys giving statements. And the same way with workers. Workers' contract would, with apostrophe before the S, would be one worker's contract. The apostrophe after the S means there are multiple workers and we've collected their contracts. So if a joint or group possession, so say I have two people and they own something together, the apostrophe goes after the second name only. As in this instance, John and Julie's house has a screened porch. Both John and Julie own this screened porch. Okay, so that's my first question. Does somebody own something? Yes, their house. They own this house. The house belongs to John and Julie, but they own it together. So I'm going to put the apostrophe after the second name only. Now, if two people own different items, then I have to put an apostrophe S after each name. Let's say that I said John's and Julie's heart transplants were successful. Okay, now John and Julie are both owning their own heart transplant. They can't jointly own a heart transplant. And so I would put an apostrophe S after each name. John's and Julie's heart transplants were successful. So that's ownership. Be sure that somebody is owning something, okay? That somebody's possessing something. Don't just use an apostrophe if the word ends in S. It may be that that word is simply plural, just indicating more than one. For instance, in this little cartoon, she's put the apostrophe with specials, but specials aren't owning anything. There's just more than one, so no apostrophe is needed there. We watched 14 movies last week. Immediately, your eyes move to the S in movies, but as you look, can movies own last? No, there's just more than one movie, so no apostrophe is needed. The dogs chased the cats through the yards and around the houses. Do the dogs own chased? Do the cats own through? Do the yards own and? Do the houses own the period? No, there's no possession here. There's no ownership. All of those are just words indicating more than one. They're not showing ownership, so they don't deserve an apostrophe. The dolphins and the whales put on quite a show. Do the dolphins and the whales own put? No, there's no possession. There's just more than one dolphin and there's just more than one whale, but they don't own anything. So I will not use an apostrophe with those. Now, in the last case, the dolphin's fin was bent and the whale's tank sprang a leak. Okay, in this case, the dolphin does own his fin, and the whale does own, in a sense, the tank, right? The tank belongs to the whale. So in these cases, I do have ownership and I would need an apostrophe. The next way that you can use the apostrophe is to show a contraction or to indicate a contraction. So I have two words and I want to push them together and form one word. Then I'm going to show where letters have been omitted by placing an apostrophe. And usually students don't have any problem with this. I will becomes I'll. The apostrophe indicates the WI have been left out. You would becomes you'd. Cannot becomes can't. All right, and for all of us in southeastern Oklahoma, you all becomes y'all, right? So if you're going to combine this, if you're going to make a contraction, make sure you put the apostrophe here, indicating that we've left out the OU. Okay, if we're going to talk redneck, let's talk it correctly. So we'll put the apostrophe there in y'all. Now, ain't is not a word, and I know students argue every semester, and they say, but Miss Hill, it's in the dictionary. Maybe so, but the reason it's not a word is because what is it a contraction for? A not? No, it's a contraction for am not. So if we were going to make a contraction out of there, it'd have to be amped, not ain't. So ain't is not a word. Make sure that you do not use it in your academic writing. And the third way that we can use an apostrophe is to show a special use with times, numbers, and letters. We might say something like a week's work or a day's pay or a moment's notice. I can be there in a moment's notice. And although it's not really like the notice belongs to the moment, you can almost see a relationship here. So we're going to use an apostrophe with these special uses of time. We're also going to use an apostrophe with letters. Cross your T's and dot your I's. Both of those would earn an apostrophe because you can see if we didn't, I's would look like is. Right, so we're going to go ahead and put an apostrophe with those. He earned all A's this semester. Again, we'll put an apostrophe, otherwise it looks like as. So we're going to use an apostrophe with letters. However, we will not use an apostrophe with numbers. So if you have a number, just put the S on the end of it. Don't put an apostrophe because nobody's going to mistake that for another word. Just go ahead and put your number and an S. When you're using years, like I remember the 1990s well, no apostrophe, because again, that's an S with a number. We don't need an apostrophe. If you choose to do something like this, I remember the 90s well, now you've left off the two letters or the two numbers in front of 90s, right? You've left off the 19. And so we'll put an apostrophe there to show that we've left off a couple of numbers. But again, no apostrophe with the S. And we do not use apostrophes with symbols like this one. What do those ampersands mean? So since that's a symbol, we don't really need an apostrophe with it. Nobody's going to confuse it for a word. So no apostrophe is needed. Okay, so let's take a look at some signs here and see if you can figure out what's wrong with each one. No dogs allowed. What's wrong with this sign? We've placed an apostrophe with the S, but do the dogs own aloud? No, there's just more than one, so no apostrophe is needed. Joshua's Creek Drive. What's wrong with this one? Well, the creek belongs to Joshua, right? It's Joshua's Creek. So we should have had an apostrophe on this sign. Let's go Cavaliers. What's wrong with this sign? Now, this is a contraction. We needed an apostrophe here with the let's because it stands for let us go Cavaliers. And so we should have had an apostrophe here. And last one. Professional signs and lettering. Uh-oh. You're going to trust them to make one of your signs? Look what's happened here with this apostrophe. The signs aren't owning the lettering. And so I do not need an apostrophe here. There's just more than one sign, but it's not showing possession. So I do not need an apostrophe here. Remember that every time you use an S does not mean you have to use an apostrophe. Play it out. Is this an instance where there's possession being shown? Is this a contraction? Is this a special use of time or letters or numbers? And if not, you probably do not need an apostrophe. Hope this has been giving you some great information about using that little piece of punctuation called an apostrophe.